What did he just say on the stand in this murder trial right now? What the fuck did he just say? What did he just say? No, he did not. It's Thursday. It's January 29th. We are going into day 9 of Virginia versus Brendan Banfield. He's on the stand in his own defense. And what we know from the parts of the jury trial conference that we saw is that the defense is probably going to be leaning in almost like a defense of others, heat of passion type of an argument, that Banfield went into the home, saw Joseph Ryan, who was an unknown third party, attacking Christine Banfield, and then he shot Joseph Ryan to protect Christine Banfield, and then he tried to stop the bleeding with his hands and no towels, and it details everyone. And that's what went down. So this should not, in fact, be a first-degree murder case, if it's a murder case at all. And heat of passion can be a second-degree murder. There is some room for the jury to navigate what degree of murder this is if they believe him. Where am I on this case going into today? Well, I was impressed by the audacity of his testimony, the audacity to get up and talk about how loving his marriage was, and then flex about how many affairs he had had. Nobody thinks you're cool, my guy. Nobody thinks you're cool. He didn't have a lot of descriptions for his relationship with his wife, for their life together. We liked to hike. We liked to do this. Everything he talked about from his relationship also involved him. Nothing that he liked about his wife, that he loved about his wife, that he thought his wife was a badass, that he thought that she was amazing and she's a nurse. More love, it seems, for the McDonald's app and the QR code and free hash browns. And while everybody loves a free hash browns, they are in fact delicious. The fact that he is sitting on the stand talking about his deceased wife, who he supposedly loved so much, with less emotion than he talked about the McDonald's app and the cookies his friends brought him for his birthday, you guys. That's really telling.
What were you thinking in terms of Joe Ryan with a knife to Christine's neck?
I was extremely terrified. I don't know that I've ever been more panicked in my life.
And so what were you thinking that you needed to do?
I was hoping to de-escalate the situation. I did not want to shoot him.
Okay.
I wanted him to let her go.
And so after he said you dropped the gun, what did you say?
I repeated to drop the knife and to let her go.
And did he say anything to you?
He did. He told me that she was hers, that she was hers, and that she gave herself to me. And Christine kind of yelled, moaned.
Okay.
At this point also.
Okay, I'm sorry, you said she was hers?
She was his, sorry. She was his.
Can you say the whole statement?
He said that she was his and that she gave herself to him, to me, is what she gave herself to me, is what he said.
So what did you do then next?
I didn't notice that Joe was moving. And
well, let me ask you this. Did you ever
Counsel, you can't fix it. What did you do next?
touch Joe?
I never touched Joe at any point during this encounter.
Okay.
Encounter? Encounter?
Moved the knife. What did you then? What happened next?
I turned around and faced Christine, and I kneeled down next to her.
Were you present in court when your attorney gave an opening statement talking about the fact that Joseph Ryan murdered your wife and you shot him, I am still more angry at the kid that pushed my brother during a 7th grade basketball game and broke his wrist than you are talking about the guy that supposedly murdered your wife.
Right. And what was her position at the time that you kneeled down next to her?
At that point, she was on her stomach. She was kind of writhing back and forth, kind of rolling back and forth. And I guess at some point, pretty quickly, she rolled over onto her back.
Was that with your assistance?
At that point, she was doing that on herself. I don't think that
On herself?
I helped her roll onto her back.
Okay. What, if anything, were you doing to assist her at that point?
So she was holding her neck, and she told me that she couldn't see, and I asked her to let me see, indicating what, that her hand was indicating that her hand was covering her neck. And she very shakily removed her hand from her neck. And I could see the wound on the right side of her neck.
Okay. And what, if anything, did you do at that point?
She told me to put my hand there. And
Sure.
She had put her hand back on her neck, and then I put my left hand on top of her hand, but she pulled her hand from underneath mine and put her hand back on top of my hand and put pressure on my hand, I think indicating that she wanted more pressure on the wound.
And did you do that?
Yes, I had.
Okay.
I had my hands on hers, trying to apply pressure.
And she was helping you?
Yes.
And so at that point, had you asked Juliana to call 911?
Oh shit, no, he forgot that she was even there. You know what he didn't mention? He didn't mention when Christine asked for 911 to be called.
At that point, I noticed that Juliana was in the room. And I did, and I told Juliana to both call 911, and I told her to watch him, meaning indicating to Joe. Christine told me that she was bleeding out, and that she was sorry and that she loved me.
And what did you tell her?
It was at this point that there was another shot. And I looked up and I saw that Juliana had my other firearm, and I was stunned that Juliana had shot.
At any point, do you recall Joe Ryan touching you?
So this was at roughly the same time as the shot. I don't exactly know, if I would assume maybe almost simultaneously. Joe Ryan struck me in my shoulder.
What?
Like the back part of my shoulder blade.
When, if you know, did you agree upon vinyl light windows?
I believe we agreed on, I believe we had a second quote from Vinylite in the summer, the early summer of 2022, which is before any relationship with Juliana. And we received an updated quote with the triple pane windows. I believe it was in July of 2022, which is also before any relationship with Juliana. And we've placed the final order in August and I believe made the first payment before any relationship was with any relationship with Juliana, meaning that the windows were fully decided prior to any relationship with Juliana.
Now, did you ever go outside and scream in some sort of a test?
No, it's ridiculous. I did at one point speculate to Juliana that I wondered if our neighbors didn't hear the gunshots because of the windows. That's the only thing that I ever remember saying to Juliana, and that was after February 24th, after some of my neighbors had spoke to me and said that they didn't hear anything.
Now, in terms of what you've observed with FetLife, in your own relationship, were any of those sorts of things done in the bedroom?
Oh God, he is asking. Counsel, I was fucking joking. I didn't think it was a good idea for you to go here. Counsel, no.
There was a point a number of years ago that Christine had indicated that she was interested in bondage type situations.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Without getting into
Get it, counsel.
what she had said, were there times when
Objection, leading.
Sustained is leading.
what if any times were there conflict
What if
in
he's not a
terms
cure-all?
of sexual
Objection, leading.
Sustained is leading.
Oh, the
In
DA
terms
is
of your
so
sexual-
patient. The prosecutor's like, we have allowed so much. The family pictures, the this and the that. No, you're not doing this.
In terms of your sexual relationship with Christine, what, if any, differences did you have?
I was not interested in ever harming her. I wasn't.
Can we just jump back to yesterday when you were talking about your all of your affairs?
I was never interested in sexual violence. I would say that we also had a discrepancy of how often we would like to have sex, or I would like to have sex more frequently than we did.
But did those differences, what, if any, effect did those differences have on your relationship with Christine?
We're in a jury trial in 2026. And yesterday, your client was just like, but she was at work for like a full week. And so if we're going to get to, but he just wasn't having sex enough. So of course he was having sex with the nanny. It's not going to fly with your jury.
What, if any, effect did those differences have on your relationship with Christine?
I would say that those differences caused some of the reasons why we had affairs at various points in our relationship.
And why did you shoot John Ryan on February 24th?
attacking Christine. I mean, he was stabbing her. I mean, I wish I shot him earlier.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Oh, no. Oh, what a horrible answer to leave off direct examination on. We've gotten through the entire direct examination of defendant Banfield, and there aren't enough words for it. It's staggering to me that the defense chose to leave off cross-examination with his client giggling, delighting in being able to say to the jury that he wishes he had shot Joe Ryan sooner. Now, he couldn't quite explain how Joe Ryan was stabbing Christine. He couldn't exactly say that, but he said quite a lot in his testimony. I just don't know if any of it answered the jury's question about what happened when he walked up to the bedroom, because the way he described it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And counsel really chose some interesting ground to tread in that direct examination. We did learn that his friend brought him cookies for his birthday on the 23rd. We learned that Christine worked late on the 23rd, his birthday. We learned that when he got up the stairs to go to the bedroom, that he could see that the door was open a bit because he's tall. And that, you know, for most people, his bed would be quite high off the ground, but not for him. We also learned that he made the recording of his dog whining and barking that is now the foundation for their audio expert to come back in and talk about the 911 call and whether or not they're going to talk about that first 911 call and whether it was in the basement or upstairs, or if what you hear on that 911 call is Joe Ryan, or if what you hear on that 911 call is the husky. But now we are getting into cross-examination before lunch, which means at some point the defendant is probably going to get a reprieve, because I can't imagine the prosecutor's not going to want over the lunch break to review. And I imagined she has enough questions to get started in this cross-examination.
So now that you've heard all of the evidence,
Oof.
every possible hearing that could happen in this case has happened. Now you are ready to tell us what happened. Is that accurate?
I was ready to tell what happened at Juliana's testimony, at Juliana's trial when that was scheduled for November. And
Okay.
I've been waiting to do that for mine. I was expecting my trial to be earlier than this too.
But at no point in time have you reached out to law enforcement to tell them, at no point have you had your counsel reach out to law enforcement to tell them this story?
Actually, I
of you
did
protecting
have-
your wife. Excuse me, I'm not finished. You have not asked anyone to talk about how you saved your wife or tried to save your wife, have you?
Actually, I did. I told counsel that I would participate in any of the civil investigations that was going to be involved with my agency, and that I would talk to them regarding this case as they required.
Okay, did you do that?
They did not take it up, was my understanding, because I believe the Fairfax police did not want them to.
Okay, understood. So it was just before she was arrested that you were fully in love with her?
Well, that's when we had an opportunity to actually have a bit of a relationship. With other points were obviously very separated. I mean, I was still working a lot. Christina was obviously still around, and I was spending a lot of time with her.
What did he just say on the stand in this murder trial right now? What the fuck did he just say? What did he just say? No, he did not.
This is your letter to Juliana?
Yes.
I am obsessed with your happiness.
Yes.
But again, all of this is after Christine
I mean,
had passed?
if you look at that, it also is that I declared that she was a hero because in my view, she saved my life that day. I think it's easier to fall in love with somebody that saved you.
Another one of your affairs was with your best friend's wife. Is that correct?
No. First, he's not my best friend. Number two, they were not married. They were not even together at that point.
They were on a break.
Is that your understanding of what they believed, or is that how you perceived their relationship? Did they think they were together?
I don't think so. My understanding is that she wanted to be with him and they were not together at that point.
Okay.
But no, they were definitely not married at that point or anything like that.
Okay. But you were married at that point.
Yes, I was married at that point.
We're now at the lunch break, day 9. The cross-examination of the defendant is complete. It was a very direct and constrained cross-examination. Do I think the prosecution could have asked questions for 3 days? I do. Do I think it would have ultimately been helpful? Probably not. Would we have all been happy to sit here and watch it? 100%. But does that serve the jury best? No. I think the prosecution is probably looking at the jury's face. They see that the jury is done. They are probably done, and they are ready, I am sure, to just get this case to the jury and let the jury go. Days and days and days of the defense tech expert. What else does the jury need? Because the things that the defendant said in that cross-examination were so incredibly damaging that I think it showed a tremendous amount of insight and restraint to say, we're just going to stop. There is plenty to be argued in the closing arguments. We have the defendant saying that his relationship with Juliana, his au pair, really blossomed once Christine was no longer around. And she really did ask quite a lot of interesting questions about his affairs, including an affair with his best friend's wife. He was so offended because, first of all, that's not his best friend. Second of all, they were on a break. They weren't even married then. He was so mad. And she asked about having an affair with someone he met on a website seeking a sugar baby. So I think the information about his extramarital activities was fairly telling, as was the way that he answered it. And when the prosecution started to push on him about issues within the story, he was not happy. And we saw the kind of choppy nature of his answers completely disappear. And his answers were direct. He pushed back on the prosecutor, and the eyebrows stopped doing the thing that he keeps doing to the jury. And you could tell how frustrated he was in talking about those messages. So I think that it was an effective cross. It'll be interesting for the prosecutor to get to pull information out of it for her closing. And she has the benefit of being able to go and watch it back for things that she, in the moment, might not remember. I'm sure her colleagues are there taking notes as well. But moments that she might not remember, she has the benefit of being able to go and look at what he said during cross. But my relationship grew with Juliana once my wife wasn't around anymore was incredibly telling, just incredibly telling. Same for me with him not feeling afraid for his daughter. I think for the jurors sitting there going, oh, so you thought this was a uncertain situation and you weren't concerned for your daughter. Even if you think you're about to catch your wife in the midst of an affair, you're not worried for your 4-year-old being exposed to that or seeing that, or that there might be an argument that she would overhear. You're not worried about your 4-year-old. And I'm interested to see if the prosecution in closing says, of course, he wasn't worried for his 4-year-old because he knew exactly what was going to happen because he's the one that set it up. He knew what Joe Ryan was there to do because he's the one that messaged Joe Ryan and told him to be there. So why would he be afraid for his daughter? He had the situation under control, and he had the situation under control because he was the one that set it up. And everyone was playing their part, including Juliana, which is why he wasn't thinking about where Juliana was, because she was playing her part the way that she was supposed to. I thought it was a very effective cross-examination, a very effective cross-examination. It'll be interesting to see if the prosecution argues that he was so in love with this affair that he needed his wife out of the way, or that he needed his wife out of the way, and so he began the affair to help facilitate that. And he used Juliana in a much more willing and participatory way as he used Joe Ryan, who was unaware that that's what was going to happen. But he set everyone up around him to get what he wanted. And as long as Juliana stayed in line, then it was, baby, I love you. But the second Juliana did not fall in line, it was cut off, no more funds, no more letters, nothing else. I think everyone around him was being used for him to get what he wanted.
Sir, when you played these two sounds back to back, the known dog sound and the question 911 sound, what did you hear?
Excuse me, counsel, those were both the same sound. One of those was not the 911. You just played the same thing twice.
So the audio was consistent from one recording to the next. They sounded audibly consistent with each other. And like I said, visually, they were also consistent in the spectrogram.
The defense rests. My first thought is that counsel is borrowing the work from Juliana's counsel, which is why this was so clunky, because this was not his idea. That's why Juliana's counsel was the one who was asking for this recording to be made. I think he was borrowing that work and trying to make it fit because he never talked about it in opening. I think he is trying to close the gap on that almost 15-minute gap between the first 911 call and the second 911 call, and saying that the groaning sound in the back of the 911 call is the dog and not Joe. I think what's hard is if the jury believes Juliana says that she was told by Christine to call 911, and if Juliana was in a trance and panicked, she might have just been following. It's like, yeah, just I'm doing what people tell me. If she was that rattled, and then she would be in the bedroom, and then the dog was downstairs. And if we believe the defendant in his testimony, what he said was that she was in the upstairs bedroom, and then he changed it to she was downstairs in the basement when making the call to try to give a little bit more space in the time period between that hang up 911 call and the other 911 call. Because if Joe Ryan's already shot, and we are to believe then that what Christina's already been stabbed, and then there is 15 minutes between the two, what are y'all doing in those 15 minutes?
So here you have 200 hertz, your F1, your first format, 400, 600, 800. So the fact that two different audio files look similar because they're displaying the same overtones is normal for a 200 hertz sound if it's not a pure sine wave. And the other thing that I wanted to illustrate on this, can I fold this?
Please do.
Okay.
Ooh, demonstrations.
So at the juncture point where he concatenated or stitched the two audio clips together, if I can demonstrate, if you can see this while I'm talking.
I love this. Yes,
This
just show me.
7.5 second clip, the first 6 seconds for his exemplar, the dog Lily moaning. This portion, if you can see it, is 1.4 seconds of where
So they were the same clip. They're just stitched together with one at the beginning and one at the end.
if I. do
But
my
they don't
best
look the same then.
Lining up, I think you can see here.
The noise in the top bit and the waves at the bottom bit don't line up.
I'm trying to keep it still. Nothing lines up
You're doing a great job keeping it still.
until
The very
it
end.
gets to that specific point in time.
Nothing lines up till the juncture.
Something else that I noticed that the gentleman didn't mention in his testimony when listening to his exemplar, the concatenation of the two sound files, there was no delineation between the two files. So I looked at it.
Which is why it was hard to tell. There is no delineation between the two files. I mean, even when TMZ splices things, they put a white flash across the screen so you know that it's been cut.
So I looked at it on waveform analysis and zoomed in on the waveform so I could see if there was any separation between the two files. And there was no point that I could see where there was any sort of ending to the first and beginning of the last, which to me would reflect that what was likely used when concatenating the files is what's called a crossfade. An X-fade.
No, no, no. The files were stitched together with a cross fade. Are you fucking joking me? So the first rebuttal witness for the prosecution is a rebuttal audio expert, audio video expert, who took the spectrograph from the defense and visually showed the jury that the wave files do not match up and clarified that it's his opinion that the Lily 6-second husky audio clip cross-faded with the 1.4 second, what was described as groaning from the 911 call. But the most challenging part of that testimony is that the prosecution said, but what else did you evaluate in the 911 call? And he said that even before the groaning, there was a voice and he was able to take the 911 call and then gain up the volume. And the prosecution said, what did the voice on the 911 call say? Objection, sidebar, and then the prosecution moved on. I don't know if the court said that it was moving on because of a hearsay objection. I don't know if it was moving on for a discovery objection. I don't know if it was moving on because they didn't disclose the gained up file for the defense to also listen to. I don't know why they gained it up, but I'm fascinated that it was gained up. And I imagine that the jury is just going to be like, can we hear that 911 call again and decide for themselves? Because what did Juliana say? Well, Juliana said that she was being told to hang up. A very interesting moment in court before we get to the T. Patrick Smith, who we first heard about this morning, who apparently saw something on stream, not our stream, but on stream yesterday, and was like, hey, I got some information about that.
To your knowledge, was there a meeting scheduled between yourself or with Juliet and Mr. Banfield on the morning of February 24th, 2023?
Leading,
Sure.
sustain the objection.
Did you have any plans for the morning of February 24th, 2023?
I did. I was in Baltimore on an unrelated undercover operation on that morning.
Were you scheduled to meet with Mr. Banfield?
I was not.
And again, I'm sorry, where was Juliet, his other supervisor?
She was out of the country.
Okay. Mr. Banfield testified that he was meeting with his manager. Is there another person that could have been?
As you go up the management chain, we have an assistant special agent in charge. His name is David Meisenheimer. and we have a special agent in charge, Kareem Carter, and they were both in, I believe, Georgia at the time. Because
And Georgia, the state, not Virginia.
correct.
Okay. Within your industry, is it commonplace to appear for career? Sure thing.
All right, Shane? Christine?
How does one dress in the IRS when they are approaching a business meeting that is imperative for their success and potential promotion?
Well, we could say that when I have important meetings, I dress in a semi-formal or formal, like suit and tie, or at least, nice slacks and a shirt.
Would jeans or tennis shoes be acceptable?
I've never worn jeans or tennis or sneakers or tennis shoes for an important meeting.
At the end of day 9, it felt like we spent 800 years in purgatory in this case once we got past the prosecution's case. And then all of a sudden, it went at rapid speed through the rest of the defense case, the prosecution rebuttal case, and a surprise witness at the end of the day. That witness was on the stand because he was the defendant's acting supervisor the day of the big meeting. There was no meeting. His acting supervisor was in Baltimore. His direct supervisor was out of the country. And the bosses up the chain from that were out of the state. And counsel took the opportunity to point out, which she would have not gotten to do in any other way, that this career-changing meeting the defendant was leaving to go to, he was wearing jeans, sneakers, and a zip-up windbreaker, not a suit. And she took the chance to ask the agent, you guys are special agents. Don't you normally dress in suits for your big work days? Like when you come to court? Because remember, the defendant never told a full version of what happened until he took the stand. So when he took the stand was the first time they heard about this big meeting. That had never been disclosed to the prosecution before. So they can't go ask anyone, did he really have a meeting? They can't go pull records to look for a meeting because there was no indication that that's why he was leaving for work early. Because remember, Juliana told them that he was saying he needed to change up his schedule so it wouldn't look weird that he was out of the house before Joseph Ryan came over. And that's the information that they had. So the jury leaves before closing arguments with the supervisor coming in saying there was no meeting. And the defendant sitting at counsel table as hunched over in his chair as he could get. I didn't even think about the fact that he wasn't in a suit because when we were looking at the way that the defendant was dressed in the video, I was comparing it in my mind to the clothes that we saw at the crime scene, but there was no context yet for what was going on that day. There was so much that happened in the defendant's testimony that my brain didn't even shift back to what was he wearing for this big meeting. I was really more focused on, but then he needed all the detail to park and go through the drive-through twice because he needed his QR code. And then he didn't eat his McDonald's breakfast, a question that remains unanswered. He didn't eat his McDonald's breakfast. He had the giant cookie that we heard about in 2 different days of testimony. And so it got a little bit lost for me. I didn't even think to look back, but the prosecution was like, isn't it funny that he was not in a suit? And the defendant has no opportunity to get back up and try to fix that part of the story. And even though the defense made more motions to dismiss, the judge denied them. There are some more issues relating to jury instructions that they are going to have to hammer out in the morning to present those instructions and the verdict forms to the jury. But this case is done. Closing arguments, and then it goes to the jury. So I guess the question becomes, will the jury be back Friday after closing arguments? Or will the jury be back after the weekend? That really becomes the question, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerd.app.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.